Excuse me.
Can I ask one and two?
Yeah.
Well, they kind of go hand in hand.
Yes.
Yeah, they do a little bit, yeah, I can see.
Well, one is at infancy when they get there, and the other one is when they've been there.
Well, within the first 30 days?
Yeah,
That's what first get there.
infancy.
Yeah. So when you get there, what would you gonna do? The first, and then what do you see the long-term vision?
Yeah.
The number 3 is powerful too. I really like that. That was from you to me. I think.
No, to me.
That was from you.
Well, that's why I,
Yeah, that was really good.
Because they're gonna have more
I took,
responsibilities than that.
Yeah, but this is
I took 20.
probably the trial.
That's why I took 23, I thought that was good. I was going to conduct an investigation.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, 3 and 23 is similar.
I'm certain.
They are.
Any ones that were
I think it's gonna go very smooth. I think it's gonna go very smooth. We just have to be listening.
right.
We're not be on our cell phones. We need to be up here listening. Okay, paying attention. So when we get back in our meeting, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we all, okay. Trying to absorb everything that we've heard and, you know. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But you don't play this.
They're all, your boy, I already know this.
Okay.
I think that's what my, never is.
I don't want to be responsible for you. This, I don't want to put the wrong standards on it for what.
Support.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Cut off the tape. Oh, wait, but you can, oh, but you need to cut it off. Thank you. Thank you. You need to call it back in order 2 days.
Yeah, we got first count big order.
Got work on the Robert Gates order. Y'all got a lot of bills. And this is the appropriate baptism. I don't get called. I didn't know I would have died.
Ms. Lauren Robbins.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out and meet with us and interview with us. You're going to have several questions coming from different board members, but feel free, relax. The first question will be asked by Dolores Langston.
Hi. Hi, Laura. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
How are you doing? Everything? You find it okay? Okay.
I'm not glad, but it's all right.
Okay. That's okay. I know we can be kind of intimidating, but we're cool. We're cool.
If I could ask you just to speak into that microphone since this is being recorded. Thank you.
Is that good?
That's
Yes.
good.
Okay, perfect.
That's good. So I was just wanted to know. So if you're offered this position, what do you think that what would be your priorities the first 30 days?
Well, after speaking in my first interview, there are a couple situations that would have to be addressed, I think, even before complaints were addressed, as far as, office location, getting certain things set up there. So to get off the ground and running would take an adequate amount of time, I think. But having an actual desk and computer and things like that, I think would have to be the number one, concern at first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once you got that, you got your office, your computer, and that kind of stuff. You need that.
The foundation.
So looking at 60 to 90 days ahead, how do you see that?
I would like to implement, and I do have a few handouts that whenever you guys deem necessary to give to you, I basically kind of put in a budget for the $250,000 that you all have set aside for this position. So that would include, support staff, whether it would be, I'm thinking 1 or 2. Obviously, that would be something we would all, talk about and negotiate. But yeah, there's different ways I have in here of kind of doing a portion of the webpage of the City of Flint to where employees and people of the community could I could start to field complaints, basically. They would be able to have a portal where the reports are drafted in compliance with, the city charter, forms if they want to do anonymous complaints, a link where they could potentially even do a certain type of appointment to the ombudsperson's office, just to make things easier for everyone involved. So there are numerous ways to field those complaints, not just written, verbal, but they could be done electronically as well. Okay. So I would like to implement, parts of the web portal, basically just getting the information out there that the position would be filled.
Okay.
So would I think be a big concern, just because I know it's kind of been a little bit of a long time coming.
Yep.
So, yeah.
You're correct.
Respectively, I understand.
You're correct. Okay, so you've been in the position now for 90 days, and that's all set up. So tell me, you've been chosen, so tell me, what is your vision for the office of the ombudsperson?
Well, I think there are a couple different visions or missions with that. I think the ombudsperson clearly has to communicate along all departments within the city. Being someone who would field complaints, investigate complaints, you'd have to work properly with, the Flint Police Department, the county for certain situations, the clerk, the treasurer. I mean, you might have to get information from all of these departments. So getting to kind of know, hopefully at that point, there would be an understanding and a relationship developed with those people to be able to get that information from them if need be. Then I would like to just kind of, like I said, continuously find ways to improve the method of fielding the complaints, which departments they go to, the importance of the complaints as far as, the seriousness of them, and then get around to developing the ways that we create reports for the department. So anybody in a position such as all of you, and I said this in my first interview, and I can't stress it enough, we are here to make government more transparent to the people that we serve. And I think that's the number one goal that across all departments within a city should, basically agree upon. Okay. So I think instilling a trust of the people of the city of Flint back into the people who are here at the city is important.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Alan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ask you, Lauren. Thank you, Madam Chair.
There we
To
go.
Lauren, thank you for coming. I would like to ask you a question about concerning how would you define ethics as a key component of the ombudsperson's job?
Basically knowing right and wrong and having laws and your written charter and everything to go along with it in writing that supports that. The ethics kind of, they develop as they go. Times change in certain things, but knowing right from wrong, knowing what is the right thing to do, knowing your gut instinct, whether someone is, being truthful or, in very many different situations, it's basically knowing right from wrong. And you have a lot of things outlined in your charter that specifically states what those ethical guidelines have to be. So sometimes people might shift you away from doing the right thing or, pulling you in one way or another, but this is a nonpartisan position. So I feel like it should be more than easy enough to adhere to the ethical standards that your city has performed and just basically the ethical standards I have for myself, so.
So you would set the example for, as the ombudsperson, you would set that example?
Correct, and follow the example you have all set as well,
Yes, according to the charter.
according to the charter, yes.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yes. Nick?
And thank you for coming. I know that it's been said several times, but we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
My question, and you've touched on this a little bit, in looking at an ethics investigation, what would your method of conducting that be?
It all depends on the situation. As far as the procedures that would go, there would be certain written guidelines for various complaints, but I think it's very important that each and every complaint that comes to the office must be addressed individually. Not everything can be treated in the same manner. There might be some procedures that will require legal intervention. There might be some that is just, me as a mediator. All I can say is that it would vary depending on the complaint in the specific situation. I don't think every complaint should be treated the same.
Okay. Linda? Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
It's okay, I forgot
Yeah,
to.
we don't get as close.
Okay, what strength do you bring to the position that might make you a better candidate?
If I'm allowed to touch on more than one, I hope that's okay. I have served in local government for 5 years. I do have close ties to the city of Flint as far as basically my associate's degree I received from Mott and my bachelor's I received from U of M Flint. Go Blue for all you state fans. But like I said, I've spent a lot of time here, and I've also, with my experience in local government, I've served on various sides of the fence when it comes to that. I've been a clerk, I've been a clerk treasurer, I've been a deputy supervisor, I've been a deputy clerk, I've been an elections official. So I think it allows me to work well with all departments, and I believe it also has made me very knowledgeable with certain things as far as, like you said, ethical standards, OMA laws, FOIA laws, certain things like that that are going to be a required part of this job. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
I'm sorry. I would like to give you an opportunity. You said you had a handout.
I
Give
do.
us that handout and share with us some information that you wanted
Sure.
to share, because it may touch on a number of questions that you had.
Thank you, Lord.
Okay, so basically, the first, I'll have to grab more. I thought they would be closer together. That's okay. So the budget is just a rough idea. That is basically a 2-year budget where, as you can see, the $250,000 that is allotted for the position would go towards those certain things. And I know that if you see the bottom, there's a Human Relations Commission. That would be basically a budget set aside for community efforts and outreach. As far as support staff, like I said, that would be something to get in and understand whether it would be, whether it's a deputy ombud or an assistant ombud, maybe a secretary. And then I tried to show computer implementation technology, certain things like that. Those costs would go down after the initial, getting it up and ready to go. As far as the second sheet where it says City of Flint, that is just a minimalistic situation of where it would be more or less of what a web page would look like, where those links would be easy to navigate for employees, people of the community, so on and so forth. With the link on the bottom, that's just easy enough. If you wanted to make an appointment or reach out, it's right there. So.
Madam Chair? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My question is sort of a personal. That is, what do you consider to be your greatest personal achievement?
My greatest personal achievement, I think, is being in different municipalities and being able to leave those municipalities in good graces and have relations with people that have helped me along the way. I've been able to establish, long-standing relationships even though I have left certain communities. I still volunteer my time to past communities that I've helped just with elections and so on and so forth. So I think basically my communication skills and ability to kind of hear different sides of view and understand different council members, different board members, and really take that into consideration that everyone's different. And I think I've been respected for that in my previous roles, so it's always helped me with those relationships.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bob?
Hello. What does working at the will of the EAB board mean to you?
Speaking to the microphone.
Okay. Yeah. All right. What does working at the will of the EAB mean to you?
Well, that means that the decisions that I make are highly influenced by all of you here. That any ideas I might get or different means of making things a little more efficient or however they may be have to be agreed on by all of you. I basically serve you who serve the people. So we would work very closely together, I think, on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis to get certain things accomplished.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
The charter calls for an annual performance evaluation of the city. How would, I'm sorry.
He's checking you back there, isn't he?
You can
Yeah,
definitely
he likes
tell.
doing
Can't get anything past
Yeah,
him.
he likes
We're
doing
not used to this.
The charter calls for an annual performance evaluation of the city. How would you go about doing that?
I would treat it more or less like a fiscal year budget preparation, I think. Basically, it would be performance evaluations between myself, my staff members, and I, hopefully with your input as well. what needs to be done, what we have, got accomplished. And that is something that I want to be open with the public about as well. And that's kind of why on that sheet as well, I have the little reports link, quote unquote, on the bottom. But yeah, whether it is how our spending is, how many complaints we fielded, taken care of, where they were given to if they weren't for this specific department, because there are a lot of things obviously HR would have to take on as far as union grievances, things like that. Even though we might receive them, you open up a position where people say it's a complaint field, a fielding of complaints, you're going to get everything. So knowing where to, put those, and we can keep track of that, and that can be a part of that annual report. And whether we would want to discuss doing monthly meetings and doing monthly reports on that, quarterly reports, yearly reports, however we would want to do that, we could work together on how to present that.
Yes, Alan?
Madam Chair, thank you. Just to follow up, Lauren, as far as the technology is concerned at this time, what would you recommend as far as what would you use to make sure that just what you explained was done in a transparent way?
So just right down to computers, certain software, whatever the city's using in order to gain access to, maybe reports that I would need, which I hope would be acquired by the clerk with her, records management. It just kind of depends. I wasn't sure how you guys went about your meetings. I know some places have iPads during meetings or, however that is. I've always just thought sometimes that can open up losses or certain things, so I'm okay. I'm a pen and paper. I write everything down. But yeah, it would just be a total method of software and how we would take care of fielding those certain complaints, keeping track of them. It could be anything. I mean, technology could include our phones, how our phone lines, if it's a certain, we have to, pay the bills or, but yeah, I think anything deemed necessary that technology would fit is kind of why I put it in the budget to kind of feel all of you out and how you would want that to be implemented.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Thank you for coming. Wait, let me make sure. Is it on? All right.
Oh, you didn't get yelled at. Okay, we're good.
Master the mic. Yes. Okay. Lauren, if you would please, tell me about a challenge or a conflict that you faced at work and how you dealt with that. A tough one now.
A tough one. I have a few. That's why I'm thinking.
Okay.
Well, I would have to say I came from a certain municipality, which I hopefully don't have to name, in the Genesee County area, that recently kind of went under fire for investigation for police department embezzlement situations. And I think the hardest part about it was not exactly knowing what was going on and feeling blindsided by it. I mean, reporters in your face 24/7, and you really have to learn how to set a community at ease versus saying nothing, and sometimes those are, work together. But they can be high-stress situations, People want to voice their opinions, and I came from a municipality that had resident Facebook page beyond resident Facebook page, and nothing you could do was right. And it gives you a thick skin. You have to deal with certain things head on, and you also just have to ignore certain things because a lot of people just don't know the methods of operation or what are really going on internally, and I think that's where it's important to kind of bring some of that transparency to the public so they know what's going on.
Okay. In that situation, what did you do? How did you deal with it?
Well, I had to respond specifically to the Genesee County Police Department on what I knew and what I didn't. I was put in a cop car and grilled, basically. Luckily, I didn't know too much, which also made you feel slightly ignorant to the situation, but thankful that you didn't know much. But yeah, you answered to who you had to answer your questions to. You told the truth honestly, and you let it kind of work itself out. And nothing came of it for me personally. So
Okay.
to each their own, and good
Okay.
riddance, hopefully.
Okay,
'Cause
thank
it's
you for
still
that.
continuing.
Okay, what about a time, maybe when you and a coworker had conflict, or you just didn't see eye to eye? Tell us about a time that you had something like that, and what was the resolution?
As much as you may not believe this, I've been very lucky to work with great people who I didn't have too much conflict with. I actually did have, from Thetford, when I worked there, my clerk resigned unexpectedly because of the same situation I was talking about earlier. And in township law, if a clerk resigns, a deputy loses her job automatically. Therefore, I lost my job that day, and the next week, the township supervisor asked me to come back and be the deputy supervisor. They had an election to run, they needed help, the bills needed to be paid, and it created a lot of animosity because that clerk at that time did not get along with that supervisor. But I had to put food on the table. I had to do what I had to do. And that was a difficult one because there was a personal relationship between the clerk and I as well that, you know, felt like family. But you have to just do what is best for you, and you have to, once again, like I stated, that situation that was happening, take yourself out of it. And the best way you can do is to not play sides, you know,
Okay.
to just stay neutral. So
Perfect.
it was trying, but it worked out, so.
Okay.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. As you know, the Flint water crisis has been all over the news, and the citizens are
It has?
anxiously, yes. Well, if you didn't know
What's
it
the
now,
Flint water crisis?
the Flint water crisis has been all over the news, and the citizens are anxiously awaiting the buzz position to be filled. What are your thoughts or feelings about working for Flint and coming in that environment?
I welcome it with open arms. I think sometimes the city, obviously, well, a lot of times, the city gets a lot of backlash for maybe the efforts that haven't been done quickly enough. You all feel it. I think it kind of rolls onto no matter what department or what board or council you sit on here, you feel it. But at the end of the day, I also do feel close to it. My dad and my brother both work for a local 370 company who have been doing a lot of efforts with the Flint water crisis. And I feel like I know more about it in that way where, you know, you hear the news and I've sat and talked to him and he'll say, we are working on it, you know? So efforts take time. And like I said, I think I would like to be a person to help put the community at ease that things aren't done overnight. And I know this has felt like a lot of overnights, but at the end of the day, you have to keep moving forward. And sometimes it may feel like a snail's pace, but there are certain roadblocks that come into play. There's grant money you have to wait for. There's, you know, the infrastructure improvements and the, you know, the lack of funding. There are certain things you have to wait for. Things can't just be done. So, like I said, you have a thick skin, and I'm open to it. And I'm excited to see the community move forward, so.
Thank you so much. I think that concludes our...
Microphone.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I believe that concludes our interview. We thank you for your time and your questions and your
Thank you
answers.
for having me. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you.
At this time, I could take a motion for a 2-minute to bring the next candidate in. Recess.
I would motion for recess until the next candidate appears.
Support.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Our vice chair finds his seat.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Ethics and Accountability Board members, our next candidate is Mr. Lewis Hart.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mrs. Lewis Hawkins. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well.
Wonderful.
How is
We thank you
everyone?
for coming and interviewing with us. You're going to have questions for each one of us on this board, and maybe 2 or 3. So we'll go ahead and get started on this end with Dolores.
Hi, Mr. Hawkins, how are you?
Pretty good, and you?
Good, doing well, doing well. So I just have a couple questions and then I'm going to leave you alone.
Okay.
So you have been chosen for this position. So tell me, what would you do within the first 30, 60, 90 days of being appointed to this, selected to this position?
Well, if I were selected, I'd take advantage of the news media that's going to probably cover it. They'll at least announce, I'm sure, that an unbuzzed person has been selected. Then I think if we have an opportunity to say anything, meaning the city of Flint, then we should talk about what we plan to do with that position. You know, we should take advantage of the opportunity, the media that we have right then and there, to say what we want to say. Uh-oh, let's... Okay. Is this better? Okay, can you hear me now?
Cut it off.
Now, can you hear me?
No.
Okay. You couldn't hear anything I said before?
I heard everything you said. I'm surprised our mic man back there didn't say, talking to the microphone. Yeah, he's behind the curtain.
Okay. But I was saying that, you know, if I were selected, I'd try to encourage us to take advantage of the media opportunity right at that time to talk about what we plan to do within those first 30 to 60 days. And of course, I'd be taking direction from you guys. And one of the things people will want to know about will be, well, where's your office going to be located? So if we had that information, we could provide that. If not, we would provide some alternative information regarding that. I'd also take advantage of that opportunity to talk about how pleased I am to even know that the city of Flint has such a provision in the charter. Because really what this does is means that we're taking taxpayers' money to make sure that everyone who comes to the city of Flint, who has business with the city of Flint, whether they're coming to pay their water bill, whether they're coming to apply for a job, whether they're coming to try to get a contract with the city, if they're doing anything with the city with a representative of the city, that person is considered a public servant. And that's an opportunity for us to let those people know that if you have any problems with any of the public servants, then you have an opportunity to come before before your group, as well as the unbuzzed person, to file complaints. So, you know, the city should be complimented on using its money to allow people to come in and file complaints on how the city runs its business. Mm-hmm. Because that means that the city is trying to run its business in a way that's accountable and that's also respectful, which is where that business of ethics comes in. I think that's a great initiative for the city to take. You're saying, okay, we're going to spend money for you people to come in if you're having some problems with us and let us know what those problems are, because we want to make sure that you're treated with respect, with dignity. We want to make sure that you know that you are important to us. The same thing for contractors or business people that have to come here to do business. And I said to someone earlier, and it was they kind of took it funny, but I said that even goes for the people at the front windows who are taking the money for your water bill. They should be respectful. It's not a time for them to be primping and having an attitude and saying that they're important because they know such and such person. It's a time for them to serve the public and be happy about doing it and be respectful about doing it and make everybody feel better about coming in to the city. I hope that's not too long an answer.
That's okay. I was agreeing with a lot of things that you said, so that's fine.
Thank you.
So I have one other question. So what is your, because, I mean, you said a lot, and I think I'm hearing what I'm about to ask, but I just kind of want you to just elaborate on a little bit more. What is your vision for the office of the ombudsperson, say, in the next 5 years?
Well, I hope it will be an office where people feel very comfortable to walk into if they have a problem. But I hope even more that it's a place where people won't have to come into for problems, because in 5 years, we'll be operating so well until it would be known as an office of a friendship office. If they're coming in, it's to say, hey, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alan?
Madam Chair, thank you. Mr. Hawkins, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. I wanted to ask you, you kind of touched on it a little bit, so I'll just ask you to continue on and give, what does ethics mean to you? Define to us. In other words, if you were in the setting of a classroom setting, you was teaching young professionals coming up, and you had to give them a definition of it, what would that definition be?
First of all, I would have respect in there. That sounds like a simple word, a general word, but to me, it's very important that if you have ethics, then that means that you respect the other person to whom you're speaking or with whom you're dealing with. Respect, definitely, you want to show the person that you are concerned about whatever they're talking about. You're listening, you are empathetic, you are not a person who's going to be feeling like you are high and above the person that you're speaking with because they're coming in with a complaint. I've thought about this a lot when I looked at the title, Ethics and Accountability. And when I thought about ethics, I thought, basically, that's being respectful of an individual. And I think that's very important. A lot of people don't realize that when you show them that you respect them, that means a lot. That means a lot right there to an individual. People don't want to talk to someone who feels as if they are heads and shoulders above them or that they're more important than they are. Honesty is important. When you talk about ethics, it's very important to be honest. It's very important to make a person feel as if I'm not here just to be talking to you. I'm here to have a conversation with you one-on-one, hopefully from the heart and from the mind, where you really talk to a person as if they are a person, as if you were no better than they are no better than you are, but certainly you are no better than they are because they're coming in to see you. I hope that gives you some idea of what ethics means to me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
All right. I'm going to ask this question in a different way because, Mr. Hawkins, you have worked in this city, I think, many years, and you have a lot of relationships with folks down here. I think maybe it's a past administrator, not real sure, but you know a lot of people. So I guess the question I would pose to you is, let's say there's a complaint against the water department, it's a complaint against the mayor's office, there's a complaint against the city official. How would you choose, and let's say you probably know all of them because you probably know most people in the city of Flint, how would you approach resolving the issue? How would you approach tackling an issue like that?
Well, first of all, I keep in mind that I can't treat those persons any differently than I would any other person, that they are defined in the charter as public servants. I looked at it several times to make sure that we're talking about elected officials too when we talk about public servants, and they are listed as a public servant. And I do think that all the public servants that we have realize that they want to be treated like everybody else. And so that's what I would do. I would treat them like everyone else. I did notice that there's an opportunity for anyone who's had a complaint filed against them, whether it's a clerk at the water office or the mayor or anyone else, to have an opportunity to look at the response. If you're going to do a written response, before you make that response, that's in the charter. And I would make sure that those persons, whether I knew them or not, and I do, as you say, know quite a few, because I've been both city clerk an affirmative action equal opportunity officer, so a lot of the things that's in the charter I've gone through already, because a lot of people made complaints to me in those two positions, especially as affirmative action equal opportunity officer, because we had a lot more then than we do now discrimination based on race, sex, ethnicity, sexual orientation, height, weight, everything. And we did, I'm going to say myself, a good job of eliminating a lot of that back then. But if we have a complaint now with any of those people that I knew back then, or anyone who's still here in a high-level position, I think they would expect me to treat them like anybody else. And that's how I would approach them.
Thank you. Nick?
Now, one of the things that you kind of hit on, but I want to get a little more into the procedure. How do you envision conducting an ethics investigation to make a determination?
Well, I would try to get all the information I can from the person who's making the complaint. A lot of times, where there appears to be a real complaint, when you talk with the person, and that's what I would try to do, I'm a conversationist, and like I said, I do try to talk to people from the heart as well as the mind, and I give them an opportunity to become relaxed. I'd become relaxed. And I'd try to find out exactly what did happen. So I'd have a conversation. That would be the first part of my process. I'd like to get something in writing from the person, but once I get something in writing, I'd like to look behind, on the side, up and down what's in writing, to try to get at what is really going on. Give them an opportunity to talk more. And then try to make them possibly see that, oh, what I thought was such a bad situation may not have been as bad as I thought. Maybe the process that they put me through is the same process that they put everyone through, and it wasn't meant towards me in any negative, deliberate way. I wasn't targeted. That kind of a conversation to make the person feel comfortable, and so that I could get more information and try to get at what's going on. Once I got that information, went back with them and made sure that it summarized what they said it did, because I'm going to be respectful. That's just the way I am personally. Then I'd say, okay, is this really what your concerns are? Then I would take those concerns to the person or persons that they were being directed at and try to see what their responses were and give them an opportunity to do the same thing, to respond back, hoping all the time that it's not as big of an issue as they thought it was, but I'm realistic, and a lot of times they are big issues. And if that's the case, then we have to go to other steps, which may include subpoenaing, it may include testimony. All of those things I've done before. A lot of times when I did them in the past, it was before the Civil Service Commission. In this charter, that's prohibited. The things that are for the Civil Service Commission cannot be handled by the ombudsperson. It's right there in writing. But I know the process because I went through it then, and I've gone through it other than just with the Civil Service Commission. But we had the same kind of situations where when a person came in with a complaint, we got information from both sides, and then we proceeded to try to see if there was some way that we could reach a resolution. Or if not, we'd have to take some other step. We may have to discipline a person, or we may have to take more drastic actions. Or sometimes it may be that the person will understand who's making the complaint that it's not what they thought it was after we go through the whole process. But that would be how I would handle it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Andrietta?
Hello.
Speaking to the mic.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Mr. Hawkins, tell me about a challenge or a conflict that you faced at work and how you dealt with that.
Okay, a challenge or a conflict that I faced at work and how I dealt with it. Well, I had a lot of challenges when I was the affirmative action officer.
Give us a good one.
Yeah, at one point, and this is all true stories, when I would leave work to get in my car to go home, I had to change the tires. And I was young then, so it'd be in the wintertime, always in the winter. All the cars on both sides of me, tires flying, mine flat. But I would change the tires. I don't even know if I could change a tire now, to be honest with you. But my knuckles would be bleeding. I didn't even think about it. I changed the tires and go on and did it and did my business, got on out of there and went on home. But I knew why. I knew that the reason was because when I came here, they did not have a single female police officer who was black or white or blue or green, any other color. They had woman police officer, a woman officer, something like that. I said, no, that, it's going to be a police officer or not. You're either a police officer or not. So that was changed. When I got here, they had some rule that you had to be 5'8", I think, to be in the fire department. That meant most of the Hispanics were automatically disqualified because my boys were a little short and the girls. So we said, well, wait a minute. Is it how tall you are or is it whether or not you can do the job? So again, my approach was, let's do some real tests to see what's needed to be a firefighter. And what it turned out to be was whether or not you had the strength, to help a person get down out of a burning fire on the ladder if you needed to. Could you handle all that equipment that you had to take up? So we started giving tests, actual tests, that measured whether or not you could do the job. I guess what I'm saying is my approach was we need to make sure that whatever requirements we had were necessary. So anyone could be a firefighter if they could do the job. And so we ended up having female police officers. Now it caused a little problem with the ladies married to the men at home a little bit, but that was dealt with by them. We did our part. Our part was if you can do the job, you should have the opportunity to apply and be a firefighter regardless of how tall you are. And the same thing with whether or not you were a female. When I was there, we actually had a shoot-up between a white cop and a black police officer, female. But we moved on. That was that time. And my approach was always calm and collective that, hey, times are changing. If this woman wants to be a police officer, she should be able to apply just like anybody else. And that's how I felt, and that's how I feel, because I was born in Birmingham, and one of my classmates' sister was one of those 4 girls that was killed in the 16th Street Baptist Church. And so, all that's from my heart. Okay. When I went double dating, I was double dating with the girl whose father was Arthur Shores, who was the attorney for all of the people who were filing complaints there. And I have had to drive backwards in my car with my head below the windshield, where the officer had they going drawn on me when I went to double date to pick up the girl, my girlfriend's friend, whose father was Arthur Shores, the attorney who handled all those cases. Okay. So when you talk to me, you talk to somebody who has lived it.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Art. Good afternoon.
I didn't know who you were.
Good. My question is more on the personal level. What do you consider to be your greatest professional achievement? I know you've had many, but can you single anything out that you consider to be your greatest professional achievement?
I will tell you, the best job I ever had in my life was being the affirmative action officer. I enjoyed that job because it actually changed the system. It changed so much that had been personnel policies and practices and opened it up to people who in the past had not had those opportunities open to them. And I see this position being similar to that. People came in and made complaints about the fact that they were not being able to apply for police officer, or my white female friends who wanted to be code enforcement officers over in the building inspection. They came to me and said, look, why can't I be a building inspector? I said, I don't know why you can't apply. So I think my biggest achievement in my life has been to have an impact on the personnel system, the selection process. And I didn't do it by myself at all, because as you know, because you were part of that, we had some great attorneys to come in from all over the country to help us with that, because we had mayors like Jim Sharp and others who were concerned enough to bring in people who would get testimony, who would make sure that we were going to get all that we possibly could. And that was important to me, that people would be able to be selected based on their qualifications. You know, there were so many things that we eliminated that had in the past just shut people out. I was so happy and also a little dismayed, because our office had become like a gathering place for everybody all over the town, from the north end. They would come down to my office. I'd laugh, because some of them would come in and they'd be so proper. And they'd say, I said, how you doing? I'm doing well, I think. Are you? You know, they come. So, you know, it was a good spot. But it got too comfortable, because some people came in who had records and had the nerve to apply for positions in the police department. And I didn't know, so we sent them on, you know. And they said to one brother we sent over there, they said, well, you know, they locked up so-and-so. I said, what? They said, yeah, he came down here because you all had made people feel comfortable about coming to the city of Flint, which is what we want to happen with this particular position. We want people to feel comfortable. We don't want people to come down with petty things, and we'll make that clear, that what we're talking about is making sure that everyone is treated in an ethical way, with ethics, and that we are accountable for that. So for me, my biggest achievement was helping to make those kinds of changes. Where it used to be that when you talked about coming downtown, it was to go to jail, to be put in jail. But people started coming downtown to just kick it with us. And we had to tell them, okay, now, we don't have time to chat. You know? But that's the best job I ever had, because it made opportunities available to so many people, not just blacks, not just Hispanics, like I said, to females, to other whites who didn't have them because they didn't have the contacts or connections. Do you know at one time that if you knew someone in the fire department or could get a recommendation from somebody, that went towards you getting an extra point? Well, who was that helping? That wasn't helping most of the people that weren't in the department already. So all of that was changed, and I felt terrific about those things. Right now, you probably say, I know that's not true. That was true. That was part of it. If you were considered a more appropriate candidate if you had a relationship with someone who had already done that kind of a job. And I said, that's crazy. That's keeping people out who are already out. So that's really the best job I ever had. I love being city clerk, trust me. That was a good job. I was there about 10 years too, but 10 years in affirmative action was my best job. It was such a good job until they got rid of the director. And then the brother who was supposed to be in contracts, I'm not going to say anything wrong, but you had to go on the north end of town to try to find people who work with businesses, you know what I mean? Because we said, well, we got some good car repair persons, you know, we got people who can repair cars. They got good shops and everything. Let's give them an opportunity. So the contract person was supposed to go up and down Saginaw and you know, and King Street to find businesses. But you know we had to end up doing that? I did, and I loved it. I loved it because I got to know a lot of minority businesses. So that's my favorite job I ever had here.
Thank you, Ms. Dawkins.
Okay, thank you.
Bob?
Hello.
Hello.
What does working at the will of the ABA mean to you?
I'm saying, you said, what does that mean? That means that you all have the ability, that I work at your will. You can get rid of me anytime you want to, for no reason. I might be trying to come before somebody to complain, but it won't be me, because you can get rid of me at any time. I understand perfectly what that will means. But that's my understanding of that will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda?
Okay, Mr. Hawkins, what strength do you bring to the position? What strength will you bring to the position that might make you better qualified than any other candidate?
I think the many years of experience that I have as a city employee, especially in the two positions that I was fortunate enough to be appointed to, city clerk, because the city clerk also gets complaints and has to go through the kind of a process that you go through here as the ombudsperson. And even if the complaint is just dealing with precinct locations, or, you know, there's also the contract office there in the city clerk's office. And so we had lots of complaints from people who were trying to do business with the city and the contract end of the city clerk's office. So that was another way that I got experience. And then, as I've said probably too many times now, how much I loved being in the HR. Well, actually, I was in equal opportunity, but equal opportunity was housed in HR deliberately, so that we could be part of that whole process, dealing with bringing people into the city of Flint.
Okay, thank you.
And you already had three complaints. They said that you were holding. It was in the paper somewhere that some complaints had been made, and they were given.
Yes, we do have some.
They were given to.
Yeah.
It's more than 3 now, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
You
Oh,
have
I'm
a
sure.
backlog.
Huh?
You would have a backlog.
That won't be anything new.
Joe?
Fine, and you?
One question. Sorry about that. What do you think your position should be with the Epton Accountability Board? What do you think your obligation would be to the Epton Accountability Board, and what are your plan on how to handle that?
Well, I would think my responsibility would be to communicate with the board regularly, and actually to take direction from the board. I know I'm to be an independent administrator, but I'm accustomed to working very closely with whoever my bosses are. When I worked for city clerk, it was a strange relationship because my relationship with them was professional, but also it was friendly. You know, I had to do my job. If people were doing things, if something was happening in the licensing division that shouldn't be happening, I had to take care of it. So it wasn't becoming friendly to the extent where you don't do your job. I think the reason I was able to get along with the council members was because I was doing my job, and at the same time being able to communicate, to laugh and talk with persons when it was appropriate to do so. I don't know if I'm answering your question completely. Could you let me know if I'm on the right track in answering the question, because I want to make sure that I did respond properly.
I don't know whether you could quite answer that.
Okay, try me again.
You got close enough to me that I form my own opinion, so that's good enough. All right. Yeah, you, I don't know whether you could answer to completely suit me, but you got close enough that I have my own opinion.
But you know what,
I understand what
when I was talking, I actually started thinking about some other things that I had thought you were going to ask me, and I kind of started answering those. But if you have a specific question for me, trust me, I will try to answer that specific question. So if you want to try it again, I'd be happy to look at the specific question.
No, you're good. It wasn't a trick question, anything. It's just something I didn't follow my idea. So you're good. We're good with that.
Turn off Mr. King's mic over there.
Now you woke up.
I think we only had one question.
Madam Chair, thank you so much. Mr. Hawkins, I wanted to ask, and you can be as brief as you need to be. You don't have to go as long. But what type of work environment do you prefer? I think you touched on it earlier, but to just give some nucleus details, because that affects, leadership has an effect on that environment.
Okay. I like an environment where people are efficient and effective. People knew me from having people from the hood working in my office, but they were excellent. I mean, as in excellent, EXCELLENT, and one of them didn't even have anything but her GED, but she was bad. She was one of the, she knew grammar, she knew, I mean, she was one of the best typists in the world, and anything you gave her to send anywhere, all the rest of the administrators at the city of Flint wanted her to work for them. So, and it was a good office. When I went out of town and came back from a conference, guess who was at the airport to meet me? My staff. But they were some hard-working women. They were all women, and I had many men in the office. It just happened that way. But they were hard-working. As a matter of fact, I always think that broke us up on purpose because we were too effective. In fact, the police chief stole her, my best lady. You know, they hired her, some kind of way they got her to work over there in the police department. But they were all down-to-earth, professional people. And that's what I like. People who are good at their job, who are excellent in what they're doing, who are business people, but who at the same time are people that get along with other people. They're just normal people. But they got to be, they have to have the skills. They have to have the skills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hawkins.
No other question at this time.
I have one final question. I'm sorry, we have one final question, and I hope I didn't ask it. We've been trying to make sure we ask fair to all the candidates, and we ask all the same questions, so we're kind of fumbling around a little bit up here. We do apologize. In the charter, it says that the ombudsperson, along with the Ethics and Accountability Board, should conduct performance audits to ensure efficient and effective governmental operations. How would you tackle that task?
I looked at that when I read it too. I thought, okay, we're going to have to put together some kind of a questionnaire. Mm-hmm. But I want it to be a good questionnaire that really does get at how are we doing. You know, we're grading ourselves, so to speak, and we want other people to grade us by that instrument that we put out. So I would keep that in mind all the time. In fact, if I were fortunate enough to get the position, all the things that's in that charter, I would do drafts of them, the reports that we have to make, to test them out, you know, way in advance of it, in time for me to actually put out the report. And I would probably try to run it by some of you, or if not all of you, and say, here's a draft of what we're thinking. Would you please provide me with your feedback on it? And if you tell me that's your job, you know, I could take care of it. But no, I'll put together a draft, a document that would get at trying to get answers to what that charter is requiring us to do. That's one of my fortes. I like to do things like that.
Thank you. I think we're finished with all our questions. Anyone else? We thank you for your time. I'm sorry, Joe has another question.
Mr. Hawkins, I'm trying to figure how I want to phrase this for you. The budget for the ombudsman, have you had any thoughts as that's 250,000 is enough to run ombudsman office? But you haven't thought that the budget's going to be, if you had to offer, could you really function with that type of budget?
That's a hard question because from what I've read, and I looked at that in the charter, that 250,000 is for the office of the ombudsman, and it covers everything the way I understand it. But I look for you
That's correct.
as I'd look for you all for that, to verify that. That includes salary, if there's going to be any rent, if there's going to be any equipment purchased. All of those things would have to come out of that 250,000. And so some issues would have to be resolved about location, because if we start thinking about rent and those kinds of things, and there I've heard some good rationale for why some people would like to have an office off-site, because people would feel more comfortable. And I understand that. And, I read everything, I listen to everything, and I agreed with that. But then I thought, there may be some places here, and sometimes I walk around City Hall. I used to love to go over on that side over there, going over to by the fire department over in that area, where I used to be when I was the affirmative action officer and the lower level. The civil service director was over there too. And it's kind of out of the way, and you can enter from another door. You don't have to come through the main. And even if you came from the back, you could come down the hallway, and you still don't have to come through the main part. And I'm just talking off the top of my head now because I don't have a clue of what's over there right now. I know it's partially occupied, but the answer to your question is that's the budget, and that's what's been adopted, and so we would have to live within it. And again, trust me, I would find a way to do it so that we would be as effective as possible. Trust me.
Does that answer your question, Joe?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, there are no more questions? I'm looking around. We thank you for your time and attention. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Hawkins.
Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would move that we adjourn the meeting pending the next applicant.
Second.
Support.
Question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ethics and Accountability Board members, our next candidate is Tanae Dorsey.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Tanae.
Good afternoon.
We thank you for taking your time to interview with us. We should be receiving a question from each and every one of us. I'm going to ask maybe that Bob, because you do need to leave early just in case, if you want to get your question in, the first question in, it might be great.
Hello. What does working with, at the will of the EAB mean to you?
Basically, it is an appointment. Oh, sorry. I understand that this position is an appointment, and so I serve at the will and at the pleasure of the board. So you all are my bosses. Oh, you all are my bosses.
Thank you.
Hi.
Dolores?
Hello. Let me make sure I'm speaking into the mic. Did he give me applause? Okay. Hi, Tanae. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Okay, so I have a couple questions that I'm going to ask, and then I'm going to let my other members grill you. I can sit back and just listen. So if you've been chosen for this position, so what would you do within the first 30, 60, 90 days?
Definitely within the first 30 days, I want to ensure that we, all of our logistics are squared away. Office space, supplies, things of that nature. Get a feel for what the office is going to be. I would anticipate initially sort of a flood of inquiries, a flood of complaints or comments or questions from the public. So sort of trying to weed through that within the first, truthfully, I'd anticipate that for the first few months. So really just trying to weed through those. Education, I think, would be really important for the first 30, 60, 90 days or so, educating the public on what the office does, who I am, what we can do for them, helping them to sort of learn to navigate the system. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, aren't aware of what their options are, what the remedies are. So helping them through that, even if it's something that our office necessarily couldn't help with, helping them to learn where do you go for this type of question, or where do you go for this complaint, if it's not something that's handled specifically by the office of the ombudsperson. So really just handling those like logistical kind of things. I think it'll be really early to really start to, dig into the meat of things, but sort of, like I said, fielding those initial complaints, getting my feet wet, sort of just figuring out things, figuring out what you want your complaint process to look like. Figuring out, if that's going to be electronic, if you want to accept, complaints electronically from the public. So those sort of logistical things I think are going to be really important to really hash out in the beginning, so that you don't look up 6 months from now and it's like, oh my goodness, we don't even have a complaint form. So you really want to, get those things off and running so that you can have some organization, because I would anticipate that it'd be pretty chaotic in the beginning. So I think that would be really helpful.
Okay. And then my next question is, okay, so let's look a little further ahead. So what do you see the vision for the Office of the Ombudsperson, say, in the next 5 years?
Oh, how long do we have? I'm sure you all have seen my background. I started with the state office, and when we were first brought back, we started really small. We started with 2 investigators, and so eventually our office was able to grow to 6 investigators, an ombudsman, and clerical staff. And so the goal would be to grow the office. It doesn't necessarily have to be 6 investigators, but whatever growth looks like.
Excuse me, Ms. Darcy, would you just hold it? Could we have the Councilman Griggs to excuse himself if he's going to talk on the phone? Thank you. Continue.
So whatever growth in this capacity looks like, I would welcome and appreciate that. Even if that means myself and the public knowing where they can go for a complaint, that's growth. Because so many people really don't have a clear understanding of what the office is, or what the office can actually do for them. So I think in that sense, growth for me would be someone saying, I have this problem. You know what, I'm going to contact the ombudsman's office. That's growth, because people know that we're there. People know that, hopefully we're doing a good job. If they're going to contact us, then, there must be something done right. So that would be my ultimate goal, is for the people to feel confident in the abilities of the office, and for people to trust the office. There unfortunately is, a lack of trust between citizens and government officials, and I think that exists probably in every city. And so the goal of this position is to bridge that gap, to be a voice for people who feel like they don't have a voice. So that's what my goal would be.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. So glad to have you to come, Ms. Dorsey. I would ask you the question that, in your own words, and you are the ombudsperson, let's say you're the ombudsperson, and how would you establish the ethical part of your office? What would be the first step that you would take? You don't have to elaborate too long, but just the initial thrust to not only satisfy the citizens, but us as an ethics and accountability board.
I think the first step would have to be building relationships. I can say I'm going to be the most ethical person you have ever seen. However, if you don't know me, then that, it's just talk. So for me, building relationships is extremely important. It was something that we took very important in the state office, because that's the only way you can get things accomplished, is if people know you, if people understand that you are diligent, that you are trustworthy. And that only comes with, like I said, building that relationship and with time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I note from your history that you've been an investigator with the U.S. federal courts. On that vein, what do you envision one of the investigations an ombudsperson being? I'm assuming you've looked at the charter. We're one of the only, as far as I'm aware, ethics committees that can investigate elected officials. So what do you anticipate an investigation like that looking like?
I think it would really just depend on what the complaint is. The charter does give a lot of discretion for investigations. So you just initially want to, first of all, as an ombudsperson, you have to make sure that the accused party has an opportunity to respond. So you want to make sure that there's a response, preferably in writing, and that is how you base your investigation. You can't sort of fly off the handles and just charge forward with accusing someone of something. You have to make sure the facts are there before you draw your conclusions. And I think that's the most important part of an investigation, is that you let the facts lead you. You don't lead the facts.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm good. How are you?
Okay. What strength do you bring to the position that might make you a better candidate? What strength do you feel you have?
Definitely my experience, I'd say, is a strong strength of mine. I have been through the beginnings with an office. I've helped grow an office, so I understand the complexities surrounding this type of job. I understand the complexities between, working with elected officials, working with executive government officials, working with prisoners in my own capacity, and in this capacity would be citizens. And so having that knowledge, having that understanding, having the patience is something that is extremely important, and sort of goes with that, and something that I had to learn over time. learning the diplomacy that goes along with it. You know, you have a lot of different players in the field, and a lot of people think that they are right. And so it is listening to everyone, and like I said, letting those facts speak for themselves. So I think those are some of my strongest skills. And then I enjoy people. And so I have probably throughout my entire career worked with some very difficult people, from severely mentally ill to children suffering from abuse and neglect, to prisoners, to, you know, legislators and directors. And so I think that is a strong skill to have that I do possess, that I'm able to speak to the Department of Corrections director, and I'm also able to speak to a prisoner. It is something that I have always enjoyed doing, and so I think it's a really strong strength that I have.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Andrietta.
Hi, Ms. Dorsey. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello.
Hello. Back there clapping.
He's clapping back there. It's something else, I tell you. Okay. Ms. Dorsey, can you please tell me about a challenge or a conflict that you faced at work and how you dealt with it? Give us something really nice and juicy.
Let's see. What's a good one? It would probably have to be when I worked at the Ombudsman's office. So we were often seen as prisoner advocates, and we worked very tirelessly to dispel that myth. We are fact finders, you know, and if the prisoner is correct in his allegation, his or her allegation, then that's our recommendation. If they're not correct, then that is our response, you know, due to policy and procedures. Unfortunately, we cannot substantiate your complaint. And so probably a large challenge that I had, we had a prisoner who wrote to our office and complained that he had cancer, and you know he was going to die, and the Department of Corrections wasn't doing anything for him. And I'm not a doctor, so you know, but that is a part of our skills, is that we have to learn. We learn things, and we learn about all different types of complaints. So by the end of it, I became like a Google doctor. So that's what I did. I reviewed all of his medical records, and you know, I'm talking probably about 1,000 pages of medical records. Reviewed what tests he had, and looked up. You know, he was sent to U of M, and I looked up the tests that he had and what the results were. And his doctor told him, "You're fine, I'll see you in 6 months." According to what I read, he actually did have cancer. And so that's the beginning of the battle, because now I have to speak to medical professionals about his diagnosis and pretty much question, is this accurate? Is this test accurate? Is the result accurate? And come to find out, long story short, he did have cancer. The doctor at the facility had completely overlooked the results and told him that he was fine. I think this is probably my most memorable case, because this is a person who actually could have died. This is a person who actually was diagnosed with cancer but was not receiving treatment. And so with the assistance that I was able to provide, he was immediately scheduled for chemotherapy. And I haven't been at the office in almost 2 years, so I hope that he is still alive and well. But that was definitely one of my most memorable and probably difficult experiences, because you have to challenge those who know a lot more than you. You know, these are our doctors and nurses who went to years and years of medical school, and then there's me. And so you have to just know how to talk to people. You know, you have to be able to ask questions without being accusatory or, you know, pointing the finger, you messed up, you didn't do this, you know, and because it's not about that. At the end of the day, it's about getting this man treatment, and that's what he was able to get. So I'm very, that is one story that I have chills now thinking about it, because that's definitely one story that sort of kept me going through all the no's, and it's something that I'll always remember.
Thank you. Art?
Art?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for coming for this interview, Ms. Dorsey. Thank you for coming for this interview, Ms. Dorsey. My question is sort of a personal level. I see that you've worked in some very conflict-oriented political environments where your findings probably were met with some trepidation on the part of others, and so that created some troubling of the waters in environments that you've been in. But can you tell me, though, what is your greatest professional achievement? Your greatest professional achievement?
Oh, that's a good question. I would have to say probably my greatest professional achievement, I mean, it would sound cliche to say, my advancements, my promotions and things like that. But I really don't. I feel like my greatest professional achievement has been my ability to teach others. So when we got new analysts in, my ability to train them, my ability to sort of know what's going on and be a person that they could come to and felt confident in my decision-making skills. So I think that was a very big professional achievement for me. I think the way that I was leaned upon for advice within the Ombudsman's office was a very important achievement for me. It let me know that I'm capable. It let me know that I have good decision-making skills, and it just made me even more confident. So I think, my achievements helped me to sort of build the confidence and just bounce off of one another. But I definitely think my ability to lead and to teach beyond promotions and things like that would be something that I'm most proud of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking around for questions. I don't know if you went through, I'm assuming you went through the city charter. One of the items here, it says the role of the Ethics and Accountability Board and the Ombudsman person is to conduct performance audits to ensure efficient and effective governmental operations. How would you tackle that task?
I think first, learning what the functions are, and so I definitely want more clarification as far as would those be all departments within the city, and sort of being able to clarify what exactly are we looking for, what exactly do we want to audit, because we can audit for the sake of auditing. We do it in corrections all the time. So, we can do studies and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, but if we don't necessarily know what we want from that, then we're just kind of doing it just because it's fun. But so definitely sort of narrowing what the focus is, what we like to achieve with that. If it is, ensuring that, the last thing in the news was with the water testing. So the 60 homes that were supposed to be tested, that this is just the latest thing that I've read. And so, if that's one thing that we want to ensure on a yearly basis, we are making sure that's happening, then that's something that we would develop. We, find out what the water department's protocols are already, what the protocols are and that are already in place, and then review those on an annual basis to make sure that they are complying with their own policies, because that's pretty much the point of the ombudsperson's office. We want to make sure that the policies already in place are being followed, and if it comes to the thought of the board that the policy in place isn't effective on a systematic level, then we look at, what types of changes need to be made. And that's where the audit process is important, because you don't really know what you need to change if you don't know what's happening. So I think just narrowing it down, having a focus, and making sure we know what we want from that, and then from there just developing a plan of action to actually complete the audit.
Thank you. I have another question. As you know, the Flint water crisis has been all over the news, and the city's citizens are excited about this position being filled. What are your thoughts or feelings about working for the city of Flint?
I'm from the city. I know the city. My family lives here. My friends live here. And so in that vein, it is exciting to be home, to work in a city that I grew up in. It's exciting to sort of come full circle, having worked at the state level, at the federal level, now at the city level. And so, I definitely welcome the opportunity. And I also welcome the challenge. I think that there will be a lot of challenges that this person will endure in this position. With, all of the controversy and, all of the mistrust and everything like that, I think that it's, to say the least, it's a challenge that I really welcome. I think that I'm more than capable of handling that and working through it and hopefully changing some attitudes and helping citizens become more involved with their government. So that's actually, I just answered it. That is the most exciting thing to me about coming back is the challenge.
Thank you. Any more questions? Joe, would you like to ask the candidate the same, another question? No? No more questions? Then we thank you for your time, Ms.
Thank you.
Dorsey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dorsey.
Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion? Someone like this make a motion that we end the interview?
I make the motion that we end the session.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Question, any question?
Question? Just want to cut our mics off. with the meeting as she's collecting this. And I'll wait for Linda to finish and Bob and Arthur to finish. She hadn't gotten it yet. She hadn't come up here and picked these up. He hadn't picked them up yet. Here. Mhm. So, okay, I will. Yes, okay, gotcha, absolutely. Pick up the name tags at the end. We'll go ahead and go through the public speaking. And then we'll save our final comments, and we'll talk about my thoughts on how we'll proceed when we leave here. Okay. We are moving on in our agenda to public speaking. Do I get this, Janelle, or do you get it? Okay. Arthur Woodson, if you would come to the mic, please.
How you doing? Arthur Woodson. Just sitting here watching this, y'all did a great job, by the way. But, I mean, no disrespect to the people who came in here for an interview, because the last person, you know, I felt my opinion, just my opinion, was highly qualified. But the HR department should not be included in this because it shows the perception, the optics. She's an appointed person by the mayor. So the mayor, it was looking like a 3-card Molly because they're able to move the files and pick who they want, who they think will protect them. Me, myself, I mean, I don't care who it is because I done been over to Genesee County, I done been over to Clayton Township, I done been out to Grand Blanc, I went up against Dane Walling, Rick Snyder, I went down to Lansing. I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I don't care about black and white. I believe in real things, you know, being honest and truthful. But the perception and the optics, you know, like the last person, I'll give you an example. The last person, her last name is Dorsey. I don't know her personally, but I know that Ira Dorsey rose with the mayor. So just that last name would make me feel like, hey, the mayor's office has something to do with this. Louis Hawkins, just like you say, he know a lot of people. I know that he runs with Charles Winfrey, Woodrow Stanley, and all the rest of them. So it was like a 3-card Molly that just came up here, follow the ball. The city attorney shouldn't be involved in this. Y'all should have your own independent attorney because now she's directing you down a road that is beneficial to the people that works for the city. Y'all should be an independent body, and like I say, I don't care if it's Mayor Weaver or Sheldon Neely. You know, you all should be independent, so when the mayor, whichever mayor it is, you all be fair to whoever comes to the office, not just, you know, the mayor right now. All right, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now have our closing remarks following the agenda. Let's start, Joe. Comments, concerns, questions, closing remarks before we adjourn?
I'll pass for now.
You pass, okay. Linda? Nick?
Briefly, thank you. I would like to address Mr. Woodson, actually. I really appreciate your comments, and frankly, a lot of the things that you've said, I share the feeling. I think the bottom line that's come from a lot of dealings with HR and just about everybody else that we've dealt with throughout this process, I think that unfortunately the bottom line is we have to deal with administration, we have to deal with HR, and the ombudsperson is going to have to do the same thing. I've said for many, many months that this should be our show and we should be inviting the city in rather than them inviting us in. But with that being said, And I'm very interested in your comments about last names and things like that, and that's something I would like to know a little more about, and that's something I'll look into, just for my edification more than anything. But at this point, I'm going to say surprisingly impressed with the level of candidates we got anyway. I think we got some very high caliber people that came through. I think that HR has put together a relatively sound list of people for us to pick from. And that's a concern that I had from day one, that we were going to get the bottom of the barrel. And it doesn't appear we did. So with that, I understand and agree that if this were a perfect world, HR wouldn't be involved, nobody would be involved, it would be our game show to run. The bottom line with that, and something that I've come to terms with over the last several months, we don't have the money to run a search. We don't have the money to do the hiring. We don't have the ability to spend the money even if we had it. So I'm more interested in let's get someone in and get the office set up. And if we seem to find that they are favoring one side or the other, or one political person over the other, we do have the power to fire. And I would not be impressed with any candidate that came in and supported, frankly, any side. I'm like you, I don't have any particular affiliation. I think anyone who's supporting any side would be something that we would have to bring up for disciplinary action or firing. This person is supposed to be independent, they're supposed to be outside of that, and if they're not, I would not be impressed with that person. So, to sum up, while I agree with you in theory and principle, unfortunately, I've just had to come to terms with the fact it's just not possible to do it that way. So we're making the best of a bad situation and trying to get somebody in that we feel is at least qualified and able. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to also say that I was somewhat impressed, being my first time that I've ever experienced anything like this. And I commend my colleagues, first of all, for a job well done. And I certainly appreciate all of you all. I love all of you all. And I found out a lot more about you that I thought I knew, that I realized that I did not know. And so it is it's in our purview, it's our responsibility. And I understand Brother Woodson's comments, and I understand that as a citizen of Flint, he has that right, because that's what democracy looks like. But when we look at our charter, we must not ever forget that that is our first charge above all, is to make sure that the charter is correctly implemented and carried out. And in that section 441, Article 4, it says that the HR has the system, the recruiting, and all of these things. We may not like it, but that's what it says. And so we must move on into the purview of what the charter gives the Ethics and Accountability Board. We have the power to appoint the ombudsperson. I had some reservations about, and I had questions. I've expressed my frustration in our meetings. I'm past that now. I'm beyond that. The people deserve the very best that we can give them. And I do believe all three of these candidates were pretty good, if not the best, that applied. And I think that's important to remember. And I was very impressed with two of the applicants. I was very, very impressed with them. And I like the experience that some of you all, such as Dolores and Lois and Art and Linda have. I don't have that experience. So I would only say that it rests upon the Ethics and Accountability Board to make the decision of where we go next. No one within the administration and no one without the administration has the power to intimidate nor to manipulate us in that decision. So let us not forget that. Thank you.
Art. The system worked. We got excellent candidates. The board did its job. We have committed people on this board who are very dedicated. They followed the rules. So I think that we got a product that we were looking for and that we are now positioned to move forward. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Dolores?
I have to ditto what everyone was saying. I think that, because at first I was just thinking, we just need to start this process all over. So I was pleasantly surprised today with the candidates. And, I think that we just have to trust the process. As Pastor Gilbert said, it's in the charter, the HR has their responsibility, we have our responsibility, and so we're here to do that the best that we can. And I think that we have 3 good candidates to choose from. So I think we're going to be okay.
Thank you. Andrietta?
I would pretty much say the same.
We'll just begin the microphone, lady, please.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I would say the same thing. I would say the same thing as my colleagues here. I think it went very well. I feel we had 3 very good candidates, and we can just pray and hope for the best process. I know that we're going to do what's right, so that's all we can really bank on at this point.
Thank you. Bob?
I'm going to abstain from commenting at this time.
Okay. Well, I guess I get the...
Can I say one other thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I think our chairperson did a pretty good job
Thank
today.
you. Thank you. Thank you. I guess I might get the last comment. I just wanted to say that we need to encourage the 2 people that are here today to be here at our next meeting. We're not going to do anything between now and the next meeting. I've said, hopefully everybody heard that I'll create a little sheet of paper that'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 with the candidate's name on there, repost a position. I think whatever our options are, they'll be on a piece of paper, and no names will be attached to it, and we'll get a piece of paper, and we'll come in at our next meeting, and we'll fill it out, and we'll turn it on. If you've seen Survivor, you know how that is. You kind of pull it out, and this is what it is. It'll be one here or Big Brother, whichever one you're used to. You pull it up, and that's what it'll be, and we'll add it up, and the chips will fall where they may. No one will know who's saying what or anything. I think it ought to be secret like anything else when you go and vote. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I like to hold it at our next meeting, just letting you know. So if you're not at the next meeting, you won't get a vote. So we need to try to make sure, because it'll be a regularly scheduled meeting, that the 2 people that are not here are at the next meeting. I don't know if somebody gets sick, I'm just hoping not, but I'm just letting you know that's how I plan to do it the next meeting. I think everything went exceptionally well. It is what it is. And one thing I guess I was reading as I've been going with this charter, it says something under ethics, section 1602. It says ordinances may be enacted which are necessary to effectuate the operation of these sections. So what it says is where things aren't working where they are, we know we've been frustrated with a lot of things because we've been following the charter. We have the duty and responsibility to change and make those differences. So that's part of our responsibility in enforcing this charter, or looking at areas. So just, if this is a work in progress, I love my introduction. I know nobody was here to hear it, but in any event, we're going to get there. So let's not get frustrated with the process. I think we've done a lot of that. We've done a great job. I thank you all. We are at the end of our meeting. And that's it.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that our meeting be adjourned. Support. I move that our meeting be adjourned. The Ethics and Accountability Board, the interview process that's going on in the city of Flint be adjourned.
Support. Question. Too late. Too late. RL, you too late. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye, thanks. So.
You too late, brother.
All right.